Hi, welcome to this preview video for a brand new game hitting crowdfunding, and that's no other than Blackbeard's Lost Fleet. This is a pirate game which is a fantastic blend and mixture of deck building and worker placement with some elements of area control and contest for, let's say, the Mutiny part of the game. This is a game that utilizes very cleverly the deck building mechanism. This is something that we've seen also before in other games, but what is unique in this game, and I really enjoyed it. I love Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium is one of my fantastic games, so that's why I think immediately players who found Dune Imperium a great game, they would love this game also because it has same strong points, same strong suits. But one of the things that makes this game right from the start to stand out is the quick victory condition, because you're competing to play 10 rounds in the game with the mixture of the mechanics of deck building and worker placement, but there are some small restrictions. When you play fellow cards, you can use them for different ways, for the resources, for their actions, etc. But what is important is you need to be careful of what other players do, because there are 3 victory conditions in the game that can act as quick victory condition. So if you leave any of the players unchecked, by getting more favor on the flying gang's track, or amassing more support from controlling more lost vessels from the Blackbeard's Lost Fleet, let's say, or by progressing on the treasure track to find the treasure of Blackbeard, they will instantly win without at the end of the round, of course, we'll play the full round, until before the end of the full 10 round of the game. And that's very interesting because it puts a bit of pressure, because you cannot, of course you need to monitor what other players are doing, and we do that in many games, but in this game it's very vital because you need to be able to catch them before they manage to secure a quick victory. So the game, or compete with them in that essence. So the game is definitely a success in my opinion. It's something that I would highly recommend. I will say more at the end of this video, where I'll give more thoughts on my opinion from the sessions we played so far with the game. But if you're into deck building games with clever, simple, fast forward, straightforward deck building, pirate theme, and worker placement, and a bit of competition and area control in a very nicely crafted pirate theme, then this game is for you. I'm going to add a link in the description of the video where you find more information about the crowdfunding campaign page. I'm also going to add timestamps so that you can find all the links on the different chapters of the game for a quick navigation to jump directly to the specifics of the rules that you're interested. And join me after the explanation of the video, at the end of this video, for my final wrap-up opinions of the game. So let's see how the game plays first and foremost. So let's see together how we play Blackbeard's Lost Fleet. Across the seas under the black flag, Blackbeard's Lost Fleet is a board game based on several mechanics. Deck building mechanics, expanding and modifying one's pack of cards containing fellows and player cards that affect the way you play the game. Mechanics used are including worker placement, using sloop and jolly boat pawns to send your fellow cards, your fellow team members, crew members, let's say, to the appropriate sea vessels of the lost and scattered Blackbeard's fleet, or on the island of Nassau. Using cards as action mechanics, and to use the special abilities that the fellow cards provide, and using their private resources. There is also an element of basic area control within the game, together with the deck building, and appropriately you're trying to place your pirate forces on the board in order to take control of the sea vessels, the ships of Blackbeard's fleet, and also the pirate city of Nassau. So let's join together and see first of all the components of the game. Again, what you see in front of you is a prototype. The game is going to seek funding very soon, so I'm going to add the link in the description of the video as I mentioned earlier. So let's familiarize ourselves with the components of the game. There's quite a lot of things going on the game and a lot of components, but the rules are very easy to follow, and it's very fun deck building, worker placement and area control game. So basically what you see in front of you is the main board, which is the one here. I've already set up the game for 4 players. This is the main board, which depicts the different tracks and the island of Nassau, the parent island of Nassau. You have 9 Blackbeard's fleet ship ports, which are these. These depict the different sea vessels. Once Blackbeard, according to the legend, either seeking his treasure to retire, or losing a famous battle, no one knows, as he was vanished after his successful run. His large fleet was abandoned, so players are taking the roles of different pirate captains, trying to take control of his legacy after his departure. So these are the different pirate vessels that you see, and there are quite a few. There are 9 in total with different anatomy and names. We're going to explain them later on. We have 58 fellow cards. These cards can either be the starting cards for each player, which we're going to see later on, or they could be the main cards of the game, which also have the same back, and they're used, as you can see here, for the deck building purposes. The game comes with 30 gold tokens and 30 RAM tokens. These are here. Again, this is a prototype, so these are the gold tokens, and these are the RAM tokens. It cannot be a pirate game without RAM, of course. We also have the first player marker, which is this pawn here, and also we have the Mutiny marker, which has this nice pirate figure ready to do mutiny. Each player gets a number of components in each of the 4 colors. I have the rest of the players here. I just have collected the player pawns here. Each player has 15 pirate markers. These are the simple tokens that you see here. You also have 7 player markers, and these are used to track the position of the player on the different tracks, and you can differentiate them from the other pawns because they have the pirate hat on top of the meeple. We have 2 sloop pawns and 1 jolly boat pawn. You see one of the sloops is already on the track, so each player has their own 2 sloops, 2 of those, one in front of them and one on the track, on this track, on the 5th position. Later, more on that later. And we have also 14 fellow starter cards. These are the starter cards, and it's one set for each player. Then there are a total of 14 captain boards. The players assume the role of one of such captains. In this case, I have assumed the role of the Filthy John. Yeah, and there's a total of 14 to choose from. So this is a very big variety, as you can see. The art is very nice, fitting the theme. It's dripping with the pirate theme all over. Okay, so you can see these are large boards which depict the name and the ability of the captain. So each player is going to select one, but you'll see those copies in your starting deck. More on that later. For the moment, I'm just picking one and setting it here to indicate that I have, as a player, selected a specific captain to begin the game. So these are the components of the game. Now let's proceed with setup. The first thing that we do is we place the Nassau main game board on the table in an easy reach for every player, in the center of the table. So this board needs to be more or less in the center of the table. Then we place the 9 ship boards around the Nassau main board, or on a convenient site. That's why they are broken on different. They're not part of the main board. You can place them on the bottom, on the right, scatter them left and right, depending on your table orientation. And like when companies think about that. For the moment, I squeezed everything in just for the purpose of fitting everything in my video frame. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in total. The next thing that we do is we place the resource bank compiled of RAM and gold in an area accessible to all players, as you can see here. Players choose their color and collect starter sets of their color. These are their starter decks. You can see that they are the starter decks because, as you can see, they all have the same background. So for example, this green player, all the starting cards have a green background, and these are their starting fellow cards. Okay, so they'll have 14 of those in their deck. They also get the 15 pirate markers, 1 sloop pawn and 1 battleship pawn. And I have already set up them on the track that you'll see them in a sec. What you do is you place each player's second sloop pawn on the 5th field of the treasure map track on Nassau. This is the one that you have here. This is a treasure map going all the way to the top and then to the bottom. reaching the treasure, hopefully. You take one of the two sloops and you place it on this position from each of the players on the 5th spot. Then the one which has the spyglass, actually, if I remove those tokens, you'll see that it has a spyglass, so it's easy to identify also. But it's the 5th in the row. Then you place the player markers on the starting positions of each of the 3 victory tracks. First, the control fleet track, which is this one. So every player places one of their captain pawns here, or captain figure pawns, I should say. Then they place one on the beginning of the treasure map, also on the 1st spot here. Remember, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have on the 5th position their sloop, but also they place on the starting before the 1st spot one of the pawns also. This is called, I remind you, the treasure map track. Then they place one of the pawns on the flying gang support track, which is all the way at the bottom, this red one over here. This is the flying gang support track, and you place at the beginning one of your pawns. And then you identify the player to start the game. This should be the player who has most recently sailed a sea vessel. So they get the 1st player token, again, which is this nice 1st player token. Keep in mind again that this is a prototype. And then starting from the 1st player, the 1st player gets 1 rum and 1 gold and 2 pirate meeples of their color. Okay, so these are the pirate meeples. Then the 2nd player gets 2 gold, 2 pirate meeples of their color. The 3rd player gets 1 rum, 2 gold, and 2 pirate meeples of their color. And the 4th player gets 1 rum, 2 gold, 2 pirate meeples of the color. Keep in mind that the last player, regardless of the number of players, if you're playing 2, 3, or 4 player game, takes 1 additional pirate meeple from their color, from their supply. Then, in the order of the players, starting with the 1st player, each player places 1 pirate meeple from their starting resources on the mutiny field of the game board, either on any ship or on the Nassau island. That means they would go here on the different sea vessels or on the Nassau island. You have this icon here for the pirate meeples. So I've done that, and I have placed 1 pirate meeple on the mutiny spot of each of on some of the vessels. Okay, each player decides on which vessel they want ship they want to go to. Then you create a card shop in an area accessible from all players. You shuffle all the cards, which are these cards here, and you open 5 cards, as you can see in the bottom of your screen. You need to leave some discard area for the cards to be discarded next to the drawing pile. And then starting with the last player and moving in counterclockwise direction, each player chooses a board representing a captain to play with during the game. Again, I remind you that they take the whole bunch of selection of the different captains, and they're going to select 1 board to play with, starting with the last player and going anti-clockwise back to the 1st player. As you can see at the bottom of Filthy John, for example, who is a captain, each of the captain boards has a named counterpart in one of the fellow starting cards. They have the ability here and the name, so it's called Filthy John here. Only the player who has selected a particular captain retains the corresponding starting fellow card called, asks the name that they selected. All the other players need to remove them from the deck. So for example, if I was playing with this board with Filthy John, I would be keeping Filthy John. Okay, but let's say if my other players selected Fingers, Black Powder Pit, and Midstick Nick, those cards need to be removed from my deck. That would leave me with a total of 14 boards and cards in your fellow deck. So the boards are the same names like your starting fellow cards. Yeah. So I keep my own selection. So I kept Filthy John. I removed the selections from the other players, the names that they selected, out of my deck, and then I also need to remove 1 more. Okay, of course not Filthy John, I need to keep my own card. So I will select 1 more, random, not one selected from the players, these are already removed, and remove it. So that would leave me with a total of 10 cards, 10 fellow cards, starting cards, out of which 1 should be the same name like my starting captain. Filthy John in this case. So this is my drawing pile, my drawing deck, and I place it on the left side of my captain board. Then each player randomly shuffles their starting deck card, and keep in mind that from now on the fellow card matching the board of the selected captain gains special abilities. When it is played, and the player may but does not have to take advantage of the bonuses provided by the captain's board. All captain's boards and their actions are described in the rulebook in detail. Then each player shuffles the fellow deck card and places it to the left of the captain board, as I said before, and they draw out of this deck 5 cards, a total of 5 cards for their starting hand. Gameplay and mechanics used. What is the goal of the game? Each player takes on the role of a captain of a group of pirates who wish to take over the Blackbeard's inheritance. This can be done in several ways: by gaining control of enough of Blackbeard's fleet ships by finding his treasure, or by gaining a sufficient large enough support from the flying gang. With a quick glance, I remind you that we have 3 tracks, the 3 victory point tracks, 3 victory tracks as they're called. You have the controlled fleet track, which is this one. You have the flying gang's track support, which is this one. And then you have the treasure map track, which is this one. It goes all the way to the top and then down to the bottom right. Rounds and player turns. The game lasts for a maximum of 10 rounds, during which players in order, starting with the player holding the first player marker, take their turns one at a time clockwise. When all players have completed their fold actions, as they're called, we'll see that later on, there is a mutiny on the ship with a mutiny marker. I remind you, this is the mutiny marker. So it will be on one of the ships, and on this one it will happen a mutiny. After the mutiny, the round of the game ends, and we'll proceed with the next round. A player's turn consists of the execution of one action and any number of reactions. An action entails either playing a fellow card and sending it to the jolly boat or sloop, sending it with a jolly boat or a sloop to a ship or to Nassau board, so here or on any ships here, or playing a fellow card and performing a special action provided by the card itself, or a fold action. A free action, on the other hand, is playing a fellow card in order to immediately acquire the resources offered by the card. The player may perform this free action in their turn as many times as they wish and are able to do so. Building a deck. Over the course of the game, players will have the opportunity to acquire new fellow cards that they will use in the game. The cards have different actions and abilities, so as the game progresses, each player's deck will become increasingly different from one another. Each time a player acquires a new fellow card, it goes into that player's discard pile. Each time a player should but cannot draw a card, and only then, because they have run out of the deck, they shuffle their discard pile, creating a new deck and continue drawing cards. During the course of the game, players may also have the option to remove cards from their deck to get rid of, let's say, the not so very strong cards as the game progresses, or they want to increase the chances of picking up stronger cards. The content of the cards always take precedence over the basic rules of the game. Sloops and jolly boats. At the start of the game, each player has one sloop and one jolly boat available in their inventory. When a player advances on the 5th field of the treasure map track, they will find an additional sloop that they will add to their possessions. Finding the additional sloop abandoned by the Blackbeard's men, which they can use from the moment of acquisition, even if it's in the same round in which the player acquired it by reaching on the treasure map track the sloop that we put it there during the setup. Remember, we have 2 sloops and 1 jolly boat, but we start only with 1 and 1, and we get the second sloop during when we reach the 5th spot on the treasure track. The following rules apply when sending sloops and jolly boats. Only sloops may be sailed to Nassau. That means only this type of markers. Both a jolly boat and a sloop can be sailed to the ships. So both this and that can go on the different ships that we see below the main board. If there is already a jolly boat on a ship, you cannot enter there with another jolly boat. If there is only a jolly boat on a ship, regardless of who owns it, the player may still sail there with a sloop and therefore the ship perform the ship action. A maximum of one jolly boat and one sloop can be placed on a ship, and if there is already a sloop on a ship of one of the players, no one else in that round may use the action of that ship. There is an obligation to perform at least one of the available ship actions. If a player cannot or does not wish to perform any action because it requires spending resources, for example, that the player does not have, the player may not send their jolly boat on the sloop to that or their sloop to that ship. To send your sloop or jolly boat to a ship, you must play a fellow card from your hand that has the appropriate sailing skill shown on as an icon on the card. More on that later. To send your sloop to Nassau, play any fellow card from your hand regardless of their sailing skill or lack thereof, but the fellow must sail the sloop. Placing and moving pirates. If an action or effect allows you to add a pirate, the player places his pirate meeple on any mutiny space either on the ship or that of the wish or Nassau. If an action or effect allows you to move a pirate, a player may move any player's pirate between any ship, mutiny or Nassau spaces. And also there is a golden rule. If the contents of the captain board or the game card are in conflict with the rules of the game, the contents of the captain game board takes precedence, followed by the contents of the fellow card, and only then the general rules apply. Round and turn of players. The game lasts for a maximum of 10 rounds, and each round consists of the following phases. First, start of the round. Second, players' turns. Third, ship or Nassau mutiny. Fourth, refreshment of the fellow card shop. And fifth, return of sloops and jolly boats. Let's dive more into each of those phases in more detail. First, we have the start of the round. The player holding the first player marker, which is this one, and takes their turn. They start the turn of the game by selecting the ship on which the mutiny will take place in this round. They may select any ship that is not controlled by any player, and the first player places their mutiny marker by that ship. In this round, the mutiny will break out on that ship. For example, he will do that. Let's say I will have mutiny here. If there is no ship where the mutiny can take place, and only then, the player holding the first player marker places the mutiny marker on Nassau. So, there are rules on if it can be placed on a ship or on Nassau. I will see more of that later. But for the moment, keep in mind that if there is no ship where the mutiny can take place, and only then, the player holding the ship player marker places it on the Nassau. That's the first phase of the round, the start of the round. Let's proceed to the second phase of the round, which is players' turns. Starting with the player holding the first player marker, players take their turn in a clockwise fashion. In their turn, a player must perform one of the three actions that I mentioned before. Quick reminder: first, sending a fellow by sloop or by jolly boat to an available ship or Nassau field. Or second, playing a fellow card and performing the action shown on it. Or third, fold action. In addition, during their turn, a player may discard any number of fellow cards from their hand to acquire the bonus marked with the red lightning bolt. Let's see now the anatomy of the cards. The bolt I just previously mentioned is, for example, this bolt over here. Okay? But let's see the anatomy of a fellow card. First, we have the card name. You can see it here. Danny Doc Masters, Jean-Baptiste Lavasseur, or Anne Bonnet. Okay? This is the name of the card, of the fellow card. Second, we have the required number of favors to purchase the card. This is shown over here on top of the bell icon. So 5 or 2 or 3. Third, we have the free action discarding bonus. This can be shown here, for example. And then we can have the sailing icons. These sailing icons can be found on the left side of the card. Those three sailing icons those two sailing icons, or just a single sailing icon over here. Then we have the favors provided by the card. These are described here opposite the cost. So the cost is here and the favors provided by the card is here. So this card provides 2 favors, this one provides none favors, and this one provides 1 favor. And next we can see the bonus or available card action. This can be found here at the bottom of the card in this box. Last, you'll find on the last, in the final production game, a card number over here, referencing the card number for the deck. Sending a fellow in a sloop or jolly boat to an available field on a ship or Nassau island. A player plays a fellow card from their hand onto their discard pile, and they may send their sloop or jolly boat to an available and free field that corresponds to the sailing ability of the fellow card played. Ships have a specific icon required level of sailing, which the played fellow cards must have in order to be able to sail to that ship. For example, you see here's a sailing icon, and in this case a player can sail this fellow because they have the matching icon, or that fellow, but not this fellow because he's lacking the matching green icon over here. Keep in mind, to sail to Nassau, a fellow does not need to have any icon of sailing skill. Every pirate knows how to reach Nassau. Some limitations of sending a fellow using a sloop or jolly boat. If the ship field is free, you can reach it with both a jolly boat and a sloop. So either a sloop or a jolly boat can reach the destination. If the ship field is occupied by a jolly boat of any player, even your own, you may sail there again, but only in a sloop. So in a sloop I can reach there even if there is a jolly boat, either mine or from other players, but I can only sail there with a sloop. If the ship field is occupied by the sloop of any player, for example, let's say that this player had their sloop, let me find the sloop from another player, already there. That means, and there is a location actually, you have a location pre-printed, okay? So this is a location for the sloop and this is a location for the jolly boat, okay? So if the ship field is occupied by the sloop of any player, so let's say the purple player was here, okay? Then you may not sail here. It's not allowed this round. If there is a jolly boat of any player on the ship field, you may not sail there with a jolly boat. That means, for example, this player cannot sail there with a jolly boat. And last, only a sloop may be sailed to Nassau. Now, let's see the anatomy of a shipboard. First of all, we have the name that you see here. This is the name described on this box. Then we have the required sailing icon that you can find here. This is the required sailing icon for this ship. Then you have the mutiny area, the mutiny field. This is the mutiny field, okay? Then you have the ship's action field, which is described here. And then you have the flying gang track award for taking control of this ship, which is here. So this is the anatomy of the shipboard. Now, performing a ship or Nassau action. The player who sends their sloop or jolly boat performs the action of the field to which they sailed. Okay? The action of the field to which they sailed. The ship's action field may contain options to choose that the player will do, separated by a diagonal line, okay? Or the option to do several things in order from left to right, separated by vertical line, as you see here. If the player is unable or unwilling to perform any available action on the ship field because, for example, they would require discarding resources that they don't have, they don't possess, the player may not sail to the ship to begin with. Playing a fellow card and performing the action shown on it. Some fellow cards have a field that allows the player to perform a special action associated only with that card. The player does not send their sloop or bolly boat, but only considers the field of the action provided by the card played. An example of action played, so if we play this card, you see at the bottom their action field. That means that you will summon your jolly boat by playing this card because you will enable the action at the bottom over here. Fold action. A player who performs a fold action no longer participates in that round. However, they can still benefit from the bonuses provided by the ship's control fields, as long as the players who have not yet performed their fold actions sail there. The fold action is divided in 4 phases. Discarding fellow cards in exchange for resources shown on them, acquiring fellow cards, passing first player marker, drawing 5 cards. Discarding fellow cards in exchange for the resources. As during any other turn, a player may perform free actions and discard any number of fellow cards to acquire the resources shown on them. Acquiring fellow cards. The player reveals any fellow cards remaining in their hand and counts up the value of the favors they provide. The player may purchase any fellow card visible in the card shop that they can afford from the provided favors. I remind you that these are the provided favors on the bottom right, the green number. And from those they can buy, with the ones that they have discarded from their hand, they can buy a card from the offer, from the card shop. For example, before purchasing cards, the player may also refresh the fellow card shop once by spending, respectively, X RAM to discard X cards from the card shop and discover new ones, replenishing the card shop to 5 cards, or 1 gold to discard any number of cards and revealing new ones, replenishing the card up to 5 cards. If the fellow card shop deck is empty, of course, you shuffle the discard pile and create a new card shop pile. At any time during the game, there should be 5 face-up cards in the fellow card shop, as we've seen during setup. This means that the players, at any time, they will have 5 cards in the fellow card shop, and this means that if a player discards or acquires a card, the remaining cards in the card shop should be moved towards the discarded cards to form a new shop pile. When the card shop should be replenished by adding new card to the first field of the card shop and move it, and if possible towards the last field until there are 5 face-up cards visible in the card shop. If the player has any favors left and used for purchasing of cards, they may buy more fellow cards as long as they can afford them. The purchased fellow cards, of course, go into the discard pile of the player. Favors not used to purchase cards are forfeited. All fellow cards of the player that the player had in hand during the fold action are discarded to the player's discarded fellow cards pile, and none of the cards may be retained, carried out to the next round. Passing the first player marker, which is, again, this one. I've shown it many times, I think, during this video, but I really like it. That's why I'm showing it to you all these times. The player who performs the fold action first immediately takes the first player marker. If the first player to fold is the one who has the first player marker, they put it in the middle of the table and the first player marker goes to the player who folds. Player who folds first from that point on, that is. No player may ever fold the first player marker for 2 consecutive rounds. The first player marker for 2 consecutive rounds. Then, drawing 5 cards. In the final phase of the fold action, the player draws 5 new fellow cards into their hand from their draw piles, and if the draw pile is empty, they shuffle the discard pile and make a new draw pile, and they continue drawing until they have 5 fellow cards in hand. Third phase is a mutiny on the ship. Once all players have performed the fold action, there is a mutiny on the ship by which the mutiny marker is placed. For example, in this case, we have it on Queen Anne's Revenge ship over here. All players who have their pirates on the ship where the mutiny is taking place add up their strength points. Each pirate there, pirate pawn that is, gives that player 1 strength point. Each player then takes all of their gold and, in secret from the others, decide how much gold they wish to spend to bribe the crew of the ship on which the mutiny is taking place. Each gold spent is worth 1 force point. The declared amount of gold is discarded by the players to the general resource bank, whether or not they have won the mutiny. So all players together, they put some gold in their fist, immediately they reveal, and this the amount of gold included in their hand, once revealed from all players simultaneously, provide this number of force points, which are added to the pirates that they have on that location. Resolution of the mutiny. The mutiny is won by the player who has the highest total strength. If several players are tied, having the same high strength, the tie is resolved in favor of the player who has a greater number in his pirates figures, pirate meeples, on the ship on which the mutiny takes place. If there is still a tie, and only then, the player sitting closest to the player holding the first player marker wins the mutiny, starting with the player holding the first player marker and going clockwise. If there are no pirates on the ship with the mutiny marker, then the mutiny is won by the player currently holding the first player marker. So the player holding the first player marker, who placed this mutiny marker, will win the mutiny, even if they don't have, if they have no pirates there are no pirates at all on the ship to resolve the mutiny. The player who won the mutiny on the ship takes control of that ship, moves their marker 1 field ahead on the controlled fleet. In this case, the green would move 1 towards the controlled fleet over here. Then places one of the pirates involved in the mutiny on the ship control field. This pirate meeple will remain on the ship control field until the end of the game permanently, reducing that player's pool of available pirates. Okay, so meaning that one will go there, reducing permanently the player control pirates, the player control pool. Okay, so this pool. The remaining of the pirates of the player who won the mutiny are returned to that player's pool, so they go to their personal pool, and they move on the flying gang track by the appropriate number of spaces provided by the shipboard. That could be, in this case, for example, 1, or it could be, in other cases, more. For example, in this case, 2. So for our example, the green player will move 1 spot on this track on the respective flying gang track because they gained 1 icon. Then, all other players who participate in this mutiny lose half their pirates rounding up. These are returned to their pool, so one of those 2 in this case is going to return to the orange player's pool. The remaining pirates remain on that ship on the mutiny field. Players will be able to move them to another ship or Nassau using the move pirate action. The player controlling that ship gets to use the corresponding control bonus whenever any pirate, even themselves, uses that ship's action. And that control bonus is depicted here. Okay, so above the control there is the control bonus for each vessel. In this case it's this icon, gain 1 ram. Last but not least, the ship on which the mutiny has been carried out will never be subject to another mutiny during that game. So this is resolved and that's concluded. Mutiny on Nassau Island. When there is a mutiny has been carried out on all ships and no player has met the quick victory condition, the player holding the first player marker places the mutiny marker on Nassau. The mutiny on Nassau is carried out in the same manner as the mutiny on the ships that we've seen so far. Winning the mutiny of Nassau does not allow the winning player to move forward on the controlled fleet track. Winning a mutiny on Nassau gives 3 points on the flying gang's track, as indicated by the 3 award bonuses here. So in this case, for example, if after the conclusion of the mutiny, which goes the same steps like before, but it's the last one, if the green player would win, they would move 1, 2, 3 on the flying gang support. So the mutiny marker on Nassau marks the last round of the game. 4th step of a round is refreshing the fellow card shop. Discard the last card in the fellow card shop, move the remaining 4 cards 1 field forward, draw a new card from the card shop pile and place it in the last field in the fellow card shop. And the 5th and last phase in the round is return of sloops and jolly boats. All players unblocked sloops and jolly boats return to their available pool. Game end and victory. We have the standard victory. The game in Blackbeard's Lost Fleet lasts 10 rounds, 9 rounds ending with mutinies on ships and 1 final round ending with mutiny on Nassau, unless one of the following conditions of quick victory is met. If full 10 rounds have been played, players add up their values from the 3 tracks on the main Nassau board. Controlled fleet track, which is this one. The treasure map track, which is this one. And the flying gang track, which is this one. Each player adds the remaining resources, RAM and gold, to their score for a rate of 3 for 1. Rounding down, each full 3 resources give 1 additional point. No fractional values are added. The winner is the player with the highest total strength of points, highest total sum of points. In the event of a tie, the player with the highest value of the control fleet track wins, and if there is still a tie, the players share the winnings. The quick victory control fleet track. If after the end of a mutiny on ship, any player has gained control of 5 ships, 6 in the case of 3 players or 7 in the case of 2 players game, they immediately win the game, no points are then counted. This is the only one winner, no second and subsequent places, okay, over here. And you can find a reminder where you have to reach your marker for 4 players, for 3 players and for 2 players, as you can see here on the main board. Quick victory treasure map track. If during the turn any player reaches the 15th field of the treasure map track, 16 for 3-player game, 17 for a 2-player game, they declare that this round is the last one of the game. The round is then played through to the end, including the mutiny of the ship. The points of all players must be summed up according to the rules given for the standard end of the game. Okay, and you can find the end on the treasure track depending on the number of players here. Quick victory flying gangs track. If, as a result, performing their turn or the mutiny on the ship, any player reaches the 12th field of the flying gangs track, they declare that this round is the last, the round is played to the end, and then the points of all players must be summed up according to the standard rules, and we find and declare a winner. Now, this is the philosophy of the game and the main concept. There are a lot of straightforward rules and iconography that you get used to playing the game. Just a brief mention on the explanation of the Nassau board that you find here in the center. You can only sail to Nassau by sloop. Nassau actions. Places to visit could be market, as you can see here, market, smugglers, camaraderie and tavern. Only one sloop of one player can sail to each of those 4 places per game round. The player moves a marker of their color 1 field forward and receives a bonus from the top square part of the field to which they have moved their marker. You see that each of those have a bonus, okay? And you receive it once you reach it, and keep in mind that only one player can sail there. So for example, first of all, it can only be a sloop, okay? So if I send my sloop here to this location, I will move my pawn to this spot, and I will gain the bonus from the top square part of the field where I reached. In this case, 2 RAM, which I'm covering. The Ye O Me field, the player earns the bonus below one selected track, shown on the rectangular part of the field silver tray of any single location, market, smugglers, camaraderie and tavern, from the field where the player marker is located and form all preceding fields of that track. On the Ye O Me field, each player has a separate single dedicated field of their color. So if it's a field that cannot be blocked by another player, in a single round, several players may use this field, but only once per round of the game. During the first turn, the purple player, for example, could sail their vessel, their sloop, here, move 1 and gain 2 RAM, okay? Or move here, sail here, move 1 and gain 2 gold, okay? But they cannot sail here because there is already a sloop, as you can see. Now, there is an explanation of all the cards that you find in the rulebook. For example, the icons at the bottom of each of the cards is explained in detail. Here as an action, you can summon your jolly boat. Here as an action, after sailing a field action, you move 1 pirate of any player. Or here as an action, during the fold action, this card adds as many favors, as many gold tokens you discard, and so on. There is a detailed analysis in the rulebook. maybe there is a player aid as well. Some cards are more in detail explained in the rulebook. I'm not going to go through more details now to make this video short. And another important thing to notice is the actions that you have at each of these Black Fleet ships that you can go. For example, if you go to the Sand Kit Smuggler, this one, at the bottom you can see that you draw 1 ram, draw 2 fellow cards from your deck, and winning the Mutiny gives you 2 points on the flying gang's track, and the control field allows you to draw 1 ram. Okay? 2 points here, and the control field gives you 1 ram, and this is the action at the bottom. So very, very straightforward. The iconography is very simple, the actions are very simple, and everything is described in detail in the rulebook. Same goes for your pirate board. When I play Filthy John from my deck, I can enable this action as this bonus, and in this case the bonus is that after action I place 2 pirates and draw 1 gold. Okay, and each pirate has a different ability, as you have seen during the setup. So there you have it. These are all the components of the game. The iconography again is very, very simple. You get used to it, and there's going to be also at the back of the rulebook, if I'm not mistaken. So there you have it. These are all the things you need to know about how to play the game. Very interesting mixture of deck building and worker placement, with a bit of area control as well. So join me back up and let's see the final thoughts for this game. So I would be lying if I'm not admitting that I'm biased a bit, because Dune Imperium is one of my favorite games. I fantastically and amazingly adore the blend of deck building with worker placement in a very nice and interesting theme. But theme aside, the mixture of the deck building in the right ratio with the worker placement is fantastic in this game, and all the combos and the action is very, very engaging and very interesting to the players, because there's a lot of player interaction as well. Now, I also love pirate themed games. Pirate themed games are among my favorite categories. I love games which deliver either racing games, pirate racing games, civilization pirate games, or different types of pirate games. But this is something that I haven't seen so far, at least to my experience, and I've seen many games. I haven't seen a deck building / worker placement pirate themed game. So this is a 1+ and 1, let's say, already thumbs up for my opinion on the game. The blend of the 2 basic worker placement and deck building mechanisms is done smoothly, very excellently, and delivers exactly what it's supposed to deliver. The next thing that I want to highlight is that this game takes all this, let's say, well-established framework of mechanics that they're executed excellently in this game, don't get me wrong, but it also puts little spices and little things and factors and polishes around the game that they give something different. And what different comes in this game is, first of all, the quick victory conditions, which I like it. It's a surprise victory, so you need to keep monitoring your opponents and not leave anyone unchecked. The Mutiny is a thematic blend to the competition and the, let's say, the area control, for getting control of the different vessels when you're sending your captain, your pirate meeples there. So this needs to be also acknowledged. It's really, really nice. And the different actions and combinations of the cards is also really nice, because the cards can be played for buying new cards, for executing the actions, and for doing all sorts of different things. And the mixture and combination of all these elements works smoothly. I really enjoyed my sessions with the game, and I really enjoyed the simplicity of the rules. It's a medium game, so it's not complex, but the depth of the strategy and the combinations. No game is unique. No game is going to be the same like any other. Every session is unique. That's what I'm trying to say, because the abilities of the captains, the starting decks, the options and the decisions of the players will be different. So all of this together is going to result in a different experience and a gaming experience for the players. So very, very much impressed. I was expecting to like this game, so I was very happy to really identify the values that I wanted to be seen there. The blend of the mechanisms, the good blend of the design of the mechanisms of worker placement, deck building, plus something extra to keep it engaging, interesting, and blend it nicely together and thematically with the pirate theme. So 2 thumbs up from me. check the link in the description of the video for more information, because the game is launching soon on crowdfunding, and you can follow more about information and how you can support the company to make it a reality. So many thanks for watching.